in there like that. The gap fits over the wheel like that, putting it fast in with one screw. So that now is stuck, that can't come out because that tooth's holding it, and there's not got to be any gap down the side of that wheel, or your priming powder will just fall straight through. Again, this is just made out from just bits and pieces of metal welded together until it works. You just have to keep trial and error, just keep fitting it, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off until you get it to work. These are just two keeper plates, and what they're doing is just holding that wheel in position, because when it's under spring pressure, this is trying to come out. This is trying to be forced out. And see that little bit of movement there? That little bit, it won't work. That's got to be kept down into that position, because this pin sits in the back of here. It's jamming it. So when you rotate that round, clicks in like that. That's the click you hear. You see the little ramp on the back of that pin, as that wheel's when it's wound up, that's it. That's the spring pressure is trying to force that back out like that. And if this spring pressure is too high, it will overcome it. It will force it out. But the spring is trying to push this wheel out as well. So any movement in this, the spring will find it and it won't work. It'll either jam or it won't latch. So although this can't be tight, it needs to be slack. Any sort of drag on this, it won't unwind, it'll just stick. So it's got to be slack but not loose. It's really tricky, really difficult to kind of explain. So these keepers are on there to stop this coming out like that, but yet it's nice and free. When it's not under pressure, it's nice and free, but these keepers stop it from moving in and out like that. I don't think I'm explaining myself very well. It's I'm not a professional at doing this, but I'm doing my best anyway. So those are just two keepers that ride. You can see the little mark the keepers have made, and they're just holding that wheel back. Right, so before I take the wheel off, just explain a little bit about this crankshaft. This is they call it a crankshaft. I'm not keen on the term crankshaft, but it's called a crankshaft. And what happens is, you see the chain there, this chain at the bottom, as you rotate this is in the I call it relaxed position. This would be when it's been fired, and as you wind it up, this chain pulls that spring up like that. Okay, it's got to be like that. So that's in the wound up position. When that's in that position, that hole in the back of this wheel has got to be in line with that hole there, because that is where the rocker goes. The rocker fits into the back of that wheel there. So this is all timed up. The timing's got to be dead right. So as this is wound up into the up position, when it gets into the maximum up position, that hole has got to line up with the hole in the back of that wheel. Now, the amount of movement of this spring is controlled by the length of the chain. So you can't put a longer chain on, or this spring would have to be down here. So the length of the spring, the length of the chain, the movement, the position of that hole in the back of that wheel, it's all relevant. It's all got to be timed, so everything works at the same time. Now, what you have to do is, this chain, when it's in the up position, you need 180 degrees of rotation of this. If you don't get 180 degrees, then you're not got enough wheel movement. It'll not be doing anything, because the first 10 degrees you lose just to open the pan. So as this rotates like that, it winds that chain up. So when it's in that position, the chain is in the fully up position. Now, that's quite a short chain, and what you have to do, the chain has to wrap inside itself. It has to wrap into them grooves there. So you can't have a big wheel in the centre, just let the chain run round, or the chain will be too long. If you have the chain longer, that means the spring has to be longer. That means it'll be down here, and then it's got to miss all this lot as it comes up. So all this is relevant to the length of the chain, to how much rotation you've got, the amount of spring movement, to the length of the spring. It's all relevant. So that's got to kind of, you see how this chain is kind of, when it gets to a certain point, it starts to wrap in on itself. So it wraps really tight around the crankshaft there. So it's right up against it. Again, you've got to just trial and error. You just have to keep altering it and filing it until you can get it to do that. So when that chain is in the up position, that pinhole, that hole there is right in the hole at the back of the wheel. Again, this is, see, I've got this nice and free, there's a bit of slop in it, but that movement that way is stopped by these two keepers, by these. That stops that wheel moving in and out, but it's nice and free. That's what you need. You need that to be able to, as soon as you pull that trigger, that's got to go spin. Any braking effect on this and it won't work. And this pin, this rocker, fits in like that. If this spring trigger sear spring is too strong, it'll act as a brake on the back of there. It'll act, so it's pushing like that. It acts as a brake. So you don't want a brake on there. You want this spin as fast as possible. So we'll take the main this is a support for the crankshaft, the rear support for the crankshaft. Now there's no, if you notice, there's no bearings in this, and there's no lubrication either, there's no oil in it or anything. It's all just face fit, but again it can't be tight. Nothing can be tight, nothing can be binding up, it's all got to be free. In fact, it works better if it's free than if it's tight. It won't work if it's tight. Putting these screws back in here because I know where they come from then, because every screw's got to go back in the same hole. They're all the right length. If you try and put a screw in the wrong hole, even if it's the same thread, it won't work. If you put it in the wrong hole, because they're all the right size, the right thread, the right length. So let's see this crankshaft. Now maybe we'll see it a little bit better. You see how that chain is wrapping really tight to that crankshaft. Now, if this kind of crankshaft pin here was circular, if that was that big, instead of it being cut away at the back, the chain would have to be longer. It would be travelling further. If the chain travels further, then the spring has to be longer. So you have to cut this away here and here, so this chain will fall in against itself. Now this chain is off an old motorcycle. This is off a James Captain actually. Little primary off of the primary chain, and that's how it works like that. So that will be in the sprung position. When you let the trigger go, it's got to unwind itself very rapidly. That's got to go in the blink of an eye, or it doesn't work. I'll tell you a little bit about the spring before I go any further. This is the main spring that that pulls the wheel round. So that looks like that. The original weren't like this. This is something that I kind of made. I've made this because I think this works. This is as good as I can get it to work. That just hooks onto the chain at the bottom there. It works quite well. I think it works very well actually. Got to make sure that the chain doesn't catch here. When it's in the fully wound down position, that's hitting here, or it doesn't slam onto it. It just runs out of the chain, kind of holds it before that slams against this this stop. This is just some steel I bought off eBay. It's again, it's 15mm by, I think it's 2, I think. 15mm by 2, spring steel, and then I've just bent it and made it myself. You've got to have some kind of way of heating these springs up to bend them into shape, and then tempering them, hardening them, and then tempering them. I broke a few of these before I got it right. I've got a spare one of those as well. So when that's out, this, oh, I've got to take this off first. Take the wheel off. Now, this is the way I fasten the wheel on. I'm not sure they weren't like this back in the day, but this is the way I've done it. Just one little screw there, little keeper plate that fits inside of like a slot, like that. Put a screw in, then this keeper holds it in position, but also these hold it in position as well. As I said before, this is timed up, so this pulls off here now, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but I've put on 3 little dots there, like in the shape of an arrow. And those 3 little dots have got to go in the middle of those 3 little dots and those 3 little dots. That's timing that wheel up so it's in the correct position. Because as I said before, the hole in the back of there which is that one, has got to be in line with that hole when it's in a fully wound up position. It's critical that that is in that position when it's wound up like that. That's to get the timing right. To make this crankshaft, this is made out of a piece of square steel, just a piece of square bar, and then I put it in the lathe and I turned that surface down so it fitted into there. Like I say, it's got to be slack but not loose. It has to be nice and free to turn. A little bit of play is better than it being tight. Cannot be tight. So it's a bit of square steel. It's turned down, so that's like a bearing surface. That's turned down the lathe, so that fits into there, like that. And then you've got to make a cam. This is the cam that opens the pan. When this turns, let's get this bit. That fits like that. So when this wrong way around. When this is in the up position, when it's fully wound up, that's like that. When this starts to rotate and unwind itself, when you pull the trigger, this rotates and pushes that back like that. You've got to have that action. So you have to be able to make a cam, be able to put a cam. Dog's barking. You have to be able to put a cam on the. The only way you can do that is by welding it up. I just got a bit of square. I started by building it up with weld, filing it down until I got it to the right position. That's the same. That anchor for the chain is just well, what I did with that was the square was in the lathe. I turned that section down, turned that section down. That left a piece sticking up, and I welded a little piece extra on top of it. This is the keeper for the wheel. That fits in there like that. And I've put it's actually straightened out a little bit, but there should be a little tiny curve on there. So as it pushes in, it tightens itself up, goes that way. As this pushes in, it actually tightens up on the wheel and pushes the wheel, stops the wheel from moving. So the wheel will be on there like that. That pushes in there, and you put a screw in there, and that keeps that into position. It's got a little bit loose, that it should be a little bit tighter than that. So I think we're about there. That's the whole thing in pieces. Oh, I've got the stock, haven't I? I'll tell you about the stock. Let's have a look at this. Oh, there's trigger as well. So inside here, this is the trigger. Another difficulty having the trigger is you need to be able to pivot the trigger lever right at the top. Now you can't put anything inside here because there's no room. By the time you cut all this wood away to get all this mechanism inside the stock, there's nothing left. So you can't go sticking a hinge inside of here, and there just isn't room. So the way I've done it is, I'll take it. I wasn't going to take it off, but I will do. I'll take it off. This is a little plate at the bottom. It's just a bit of a cosmetic plate, this. Again, these are just ordinary wood screws, and this is an aluminium plate. Now, the reason for this plate is to stop this trigger going any further than that. When this is in position, it keeps the trigger in position there, because this is just a round bar, and if this wasn't there, this could rotate right round. So this is just a cosmetic plate to stop the trigger rotating. The trigger goes down there, right at the bottom, is hinged from the bottom here. Now, like I say, you can't put a hinge here, there just isn't enough room. So this is